Well, it's nice to have you back in town. Some of you for the first time, some of you are, I guess, repeat offenders. I mean, coming to Washington at the high point of the summer is perhaps not the best way to spend vacation, but at least staying in, it's a good reason to stay inside the AC and in this room. So my daughter's in grad school now, and I was talking to her the other day, and I was trying to understand why I was getting double billed for tuition. She told me, you know, Dad, don't be silly, that's just my credit card bill. But you know, the point of that is here as we think about this program and how we lavish this rich graduate student lifestyle upon you, you might ask, well, are we just nice guys? We just have some money to spend and we want to do this. It's altruistic. I would say, I would certainly pose that Bill is nice and I would not want to impugn him, but I might suggest that perhaps we're not. Our motives are a little bit different. And I want to tell you a little bit about why I think you're here, why we need you, what I hope we're trying to get from this program, why it's important to the NNSA and also to the country. You know, in our organization, we get tied up in all kinds of problems, and I'll tell you a few of these today. We get tied up in current issues. By current issues, I don't mean, you know, how to interpret Justin Bieber's brand new tattoo, or other types of things you hear. Our current issues are things maybe with a more Washington or national focus. And typically these are things where computer and computational science and complex systems analysis plays an increasingly important role in helping us understand what to do. Sometimes time urgent, sometimes not, but under it is a continuous need for smart people who understand how to deal with complex issues, who have a depth of understanding, but understand the breadth of problems that are out there and how to interact with others in different communities. And if you look at the breadth of the posters of the work that you're doing here, I think that's reflective of the kinds of things and how we think about the world. You know, when faced with national problems or international problems, we often ask, you know, can science play a role? Sometimes it's a quick place where we ask whether we should inject ourselves. We ask what actions are needed, what is your confidence if science can play a role, how do you bring it to bear into a decision process which might be time urgent, what are the risks? What are the risks of being wrong? What really happened? Can it happen again? And I'll tell you a few of these stories today, just to give you a flavor of the kinds of things that we've gotten tied up in. Our main work I really won't talk about because I can't, but I think you'll get a sense of what I'm talking about. You know, I can start maybe on March 11th of last year. Which was, of course, the tsunami that hit Japan. And you might wonder, well, why are we involved in that? But I remember the morning, it was certainly morning in Washington when we were getting the live feed. My boss, the Undersecretary, Tom D'Agostino, was still in the gym in his shorts and t-shirt when he was called into meetings and spent half the day, you know, at the start going through these meetings trying to understand our response, you know, in his shorts and t-shirt. But we have emergency operations centers where really we have interests and equities around the world, and we began our 24/7 operations. As you remember, on March 12th, the reactors were recognized to be, at Fukushima Daiichi, to be in jeopardy. They began venting radionuclides. And between the 12th and the 15th, there were a series of explosions, of hydrogen explosions. And there were a lot of scientific issues we immediately faced. Really, the second day there was, you know, what is the danger? There are 90,000 US citizens in Japan. How bad can it get? Do we recommend evacuation of US citizens? Is there a scientific basis to argue that? What is our uncertainty in how we think what's going on? How much time is there? Will it reach Tokyo? Will it reach the US? What are the dose rates? Which isotopes? All of this we needed to know, and we ended up being a point organization for this, for providing the scientific information in real time. All of the analysis of the plumes were modeled. There was a call that came, 11 p.m. There was going to be, because Tokyo time was, what, about 13 hours different, or 11, depending on how you count. There was going to be a meeting in Japan, and so there was a White House meeting that was called, and of course, we had about 90 minutes to do a simulation of the assessment of where the plumes are going. And so without boundary conditions, without the complete understanding of the problem, how do you tackle that? You have to have people that are quick on their feet, that are smart, that know how to do things. The models weren't perfect, but they provided guidance. At that time, the decision was not to evacuate U.S. citizens, but it was informed very much so by a lot of the simulation in part of the U.S. response. So we got tied up into that. Until probably our handoff back to Japan at the end of May. And so it was a number of months of analysis, of sampling, of simulations, a lot of coordination with the Japanese. It's not our primary mission, but because we have the tools, because we have the people, because the department has these capabilities, we're drawn into this. And we need people that are good on their feet, that can think outside of perhaps their areas of specialty and help us, because decisions have to be made. You have to do something, and the question is, how much science do you want to put in that? How much do you believe we should inject science? And those are kind of the problems we faced. These things, crises like this seem to occur almost annually. You might not pay attention to them as you're consumed in your day-to-day lives, but here in Washington, it's kind of our cottage business. The year before, certainly with the Secretary's leadership, we were involved quite a bit with the Macondo well, the Gulf oil spill. We had 150 scientists deployed in that operation from our national laboratories. We did everything from trying to understand the flow rate, doing imaging, gamma ray imaging analysis a mile underwater at record depths, things that had never been done before, simulations of the spill itself, of environmental impact, of the whole collection of things. This went from about April 20th to July 15th. We had one of our lab directors entirely committed during that period. That's all he did for those months, which was kind of the secretary. You can even find some of the pictures on our department website. And if you zoom in, because it's high resolution, you can see the difference equations that he's writing down on his piece of paper and what he's trying to solve. That was the level of triage that we were trying to do in trying to understand a problem which is, again, not a core area of our expertise, blown out oil wells a mile underwater that go down another, 17,000 feet into the rock. Nevertheless, it was a national problem where we needed people to understand all kinds of structural problems, mechanics problems, flow problems in conditions that are not typical to what you study. And so versatility of people, depth of understanding is certainly a key element of what we look for within the department. In 2008, we had a project. It used to be classified. Now it's unclassified. The code name at the time was Burnt Frost. Back in 2006, the U.S. launched a satellite. Never really went into orbit well. It failed, and it was just a matter of time. And we knew that in 2008, it was going to re-enter. And we didn't know where. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty in trying to calculate these kinds of things. You can predict at best, within maybe a 10%. So, if you want a month, in a month window, you can predict the reentry to maybe 3 days. In 10 days, maybe within a day. In a given day, the satellite would circle the Earth about 16 times. The problem we had is there was this giant hydrazine tank, which was about 450 kilograms, about 2 meters in diameter, which we calculated would likely survive reentry. And so the fuel tank is poisonous. What do you do? The decision was to shoot it down, but there are a lot of uncertainties in this. When you have a satellite re-entering, the thickness of the atmosphere varies in time and location. It might be roughly 150 miles, more or less, but because of that, the drag is uneven, and as this is coming down and it hits this uneven surface, the way that it slows down is hard to predict. So there are inherent uncertainties in our understanding of the precise nature of how to characterize reentry. At the time, the best we could do was 80% certainty in our ability to hit this with a missile from the Pacific. The satellite was basically this giant sphere and then something that looks like a Coke can on top and then 4 solar panels on the bottom. And the problem is if you hit it with a missile and you hit this Coke can, it'll go through like a bullet through paper and nothing will happen. It'll be a lost shot. You really had to hit the tank, and you had to hit it in the right way, and you had to have confidence that you would do it right. Now, as it's re-entering, if you hit it too high, the debris stays in orbit. And as we knew from the year before, the Chinese had destroyed a satellite, and there's still a trail of debris up there orbiting the planet. So we had concerns not to hit it too high, not to leave the debris circling, but if you hit it too low, it goes too fast. It starts to accelerate very quickly as it hits the drag and starts to drop down. It can be exponentially fast in how it increases, and so if you wait too long, it's going too fast. So we figured the target was between 200 and 300 kilometers. After dedicating one of our computers, which we can do, we took the whole supercomputer we had available at one of our laboratories, and we had people working on this for quite a number of weeks, modeling the uncertainties, trying to understand how to do this. 80% wasn't good enough. This actually went up to the president, who was making the decision, and when we got up to 95% certainty that we understood exactly within that confidence that we could take it down with certain launch parameters, he decided to do it. And the shot was taken around February, I think it was the 20th, in 2008, out there in the Pacific. And we had predicted the telemetry, what it should look like if it was a hit. The satellite was traveling above 30,000 kilometers per hour. It was at about 150 miles that we hit it, and it was a bullseye. And the president was on the phone at the time, as I recall, with General Obering, who was on the Aegis cruiser out there, the USS Lake Erie, and it was perfect shot. It was since declassified, but it was an interesting place where there was a problem again, unexpected. We were called in. We needed to figure out how you propagate uncertainties, how you calculate this. You have to understand the transition from continuum to non-continuum, as you enter, at the interface of the atmosphere. You have to understand the trajectories, everything that's going on there to figure out what confidence you have in predicting anything to make this happen. In 2009, you might recall Christmas Day, 2009. Abu Muttalib was the name of the underwear bomber that landed in Detroit on that flight. This was the flight from Amsterdam, the Northwest flight. In any case, in that window, DHS was the agency that had the lead, but we ended up working very strongly with them. There was a plan required by the White House by Christmas Day, by New Year's Day, on how we make sure this doesn't happen again. And we actually set up at a very interesting program with them that year with our laboratories on understanding what it takes to bring down aircraft. You know, there are still things that we worry about there. But again, there's a certain versatility that we have in our people in studying structural mechanics, in studying different kind of boundary value problems in different scenarios that impact people in different ways. And what we find is the problems are as dissimilar as they are complex. These are the ones I can talk about. We have, of course, others that we can't. But I think you get a sense. Some are expected, some are unexpected. But what seems to always happen is they keep coming up. Year after year, we have another one. And the question that we face is how much should we inject science into any of this? And so we work very hard, the department does, to make sure that the nation's best tools, best people are involved. And that's why we're here today. That's why we do this. And that's why, as I open, the question is this just helping you out with a great scientific program? But it's really because we worry about not having the right people in this country for the problems we face. And we take an active role in trying to recruit the best. Not everyone needs to work for our labs in the government. We need them available. We need great people, great minds working on problems who have a passion, who care about this, who are thinking outside the box to create the fabric, the communication network, the colleagues that we all rely on to push this field forward. And so wherever you land, this is a positive thing for us. And so we look to kind of the next generation of computers, the next generation of tools, the infrastructures that the department will put in place, and ask you to think with us about how you can help us shape the future by using these in ways that might be non-traditional, non-conventional, but certainly important. So that's why you're here, and I really hope that you join us on these endeavors. Thank you very much.